Your eyes are probably popping out of your head from the excessive amount of travel advice you found for your Swiss vacation. Some of it's really great, and some of it, not so much.
But here's the problem. Even the right advice can backfire on you if you don't know when to follow it and when not to follow it. So we're gonna break down the top 15 Swiss trip planning mistakes we continue to see travelers make.
And just as every coin has two sides, each of these mistakes also comes with a counterpoint so that you know when to follow our advice and when to ignore it.
Just to show you how this works, the first mistake we see travelers make is not taking our advice, either because they've never seen our resources or they just rather figure things out the hard way. And if we haven't met, we're Jana and Brett, Aplins in the Alps. We've been traveling Switzerland since 2012 and are now residents of this amazing country. So trust us when we say that we learned the hard way, so you don't have to. For example, we've made mistakes like accidentally sitting in first class when we only had a second class ticket, not checking the webcams before going up to a mountaintop, which happened to be completely enshrouded in clouds, not packing enough warm clothing even when we traveled in summer, taking a bus in the wrong direction. I think you get the idea. But it can also be a mistake to take our advice or even someone else's simply because we said it. You know best what you like and what you don't, and what you're hoping for out of your Swiss experiences. In fact, we tell our customers who buy our travel guides that they have our full permission to adapt them to their travel paces and preferences. And now we're extending that same permission to you, not that you needed it. So in the mistakes that follow, see if you can spot which advice to listen to and the tips that maybe you can totally ignore.
If you're flying to Switzerland, odds are you're going to arrive jet-lagged and groggy. So you might think it's a good idea just to book a hotel by the airport for that first night. But unless you really want to explore Zurich, Geneva, or Basel, we think this is a mistake. In reality, you're going to be jet lagged no matter where you are, so why not just get right to the place you really want to be on your arrival day? And while we're at it, don't try to sleep off jet lag. Do whatever you can to stay awake and quickly get realigned with the new time zone. Often just getting outside in the fresh air or doing the activities you've dreamed about for so long are enough to keep you going until dark. However, we have all heard the travel horror stories, flight delays, lost luggage, and even cancellations. So we really recommend not booking anything specific on your arrival day, like scenic train rides or mountain excursions. Basically anything tied to a specific time. Give yourself lots of margin, and then you can always pivot if you happen to have more time.
During your Swiss trip planning research, you've probably heard about mountain experiences such as Mount Titlis, Grindelwald Fürst, and Matterhorn Glacier Paradise. Those are great mountain peaks, but the reality is that each of those mountaintop destinations has intermediate stops along the way which are 100% worth visiting. For example, I can't imagine going to Mount Titlis and not stopping to spend time at Trübsee. And walking along the rolling hills from the Bort station back down to Grindelwald is literally one of our favorite things to do there. Plus, when you buy a ticket to the top, it usually allows for free stops at all of the stations along the way. And if you're not planning on visiting the top destination, then tickets to those intermediate stations are usually substantially cheaper. But many of these mountaintop destinations are worthy of being on your Swiss bucket list. For example, while our 3-day guide to Zermatt includes a full day exploring the various experiences all along the Gornergrat train line, I cannot imagine not glimpsing the glaciers from all the way up at Gornergrat. So don't skip a mountaintop destination if it excites you, but don't overlook the stops along the way either.
Okay, here's a Swiss travel mistake that I personally still cringe over. Somehow on our Swiss honeymoon, we managed to visit both Jungfrau Joch and the Schilthorn on the same day. I mean, that cream cake at Eigergletscher, didn't even know it existed. Wengen, we didn't stop to explore. The Berg Thrill Walk, I'm pretty sure it didn't exist back then, but we probably would have skipped it anyway because we just had to get to the top. So this pairs with our previous point. Doing multiple big excursions in one day means you're not stopping to smell the roses or explore other really great opportunities along the way. But in our defense, that day where we visited both Jungfraujoch and the Schilthorn was because it was the only day with clear weather during our entire trip, and we didn't want to miss the epic views. In fact, during the entire week from our cozy chalet apartment in Marin, we could hardly see anything out the window. So bundle together your planned experiences in a way that just makes sense. For example, you could book the chocolate train from Montreux, which takes you to the medieval village of Gruyere and to the Caillard chocolate factory nearby. And of course, the weather needs to play a role, especially when you're planning experiences up in the mountains.
Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's the best experience for you. Research all the places in the area you're planning to visit and choose the ones that just seem to be the best fit for your interests, whether or not they seem to be well known. Sure, Mount Pilatus is awesome, but in addition to a full day itinerary there, our Lucerne Day Trips Guide includes 3 lesser known destinations that might be an even better fit for you or your travel group. Obviously, this mistake applies to places, but it's also for individual activities. Do you really need to go paragliding in Interlaken just because that's what everybody seems to do? And do you really have to visit the Lindt home of chocolate? Or are you after a more authentic experience at a local chocolatier? However, thinking something's a tourist trap simply because it's expensive, popular, or well marketed would also be a mistake. Jungfraujoch is a great example of this. If you've never stood on a glacier, you can do that here. And if you want an easy hike to a mountain hut at nearly 12,000 feet, then you should do it. And if an ice cave sounds intriguing, put on your jacket and head up there. We think Jungfraujoch is pretty cool. Does that mean that everyone should go there? No. Does it mean that you should prioritize it over everything else? Not in our opinion. Yet, we don't think that you should skip it simply because it's so popular. After all, there's usually a reason why these places are so well known.
Okay, this relates to the previous point, but a lot of people wear this idea of travel like a local as a badge of honor, as in, oh my gosh, you must be so cool if you go where the locals go and do what the locals do. But let me give you a dose of reality. We have lived near Interlaken for almost 2 years, and our local friends don't go frequent the tourist hotspots. For example, we took some friends to Lauterbrunnen to see the cows come down from the Alps. And they had lived here for 4 years and had never been to Lauterbrunnen. I mean, when we lived near Nashville, Tennessee, we didn't buy a local guidebook and hit up all the hot spots either. So just let this be your reminder to plan the vacation that you want to have, not the one that you think will make you look really cool. I mean, you're coming to Switzerland. That's already pretty cool. We're not here to sugarcoat things or pressure you into certain activities or to sell you an abundance of stuff through affiliate links and sponsored videos. We're real people just like you, and we aim to give you the most comprehensive and helpful advice so that you can plan the Swiss vacation of your dreams. So if you have found this helpful or you appreciate our authenticity, let us know by hitting that like button. But on the flip side, when the locals do go out, they go to some pretty awesome places that you won't really see showing up in guidebooks. And those are awesome experiences that we love. If you're a family with kids visiting central Switzerland, take a day trip to check out Saddle-Hochstückli. And if you're in the Jungfrau region for hiking and views, definitely head up to Suhlwald. Not only will you have experiences that other travelers won't, but you'll have the space to meet new people and maybe even make new friends. When we look back on our travels, yes, of course, the places we visit are incredible, but it's really the people we met along the way that form the foundation in our memories. For example, this sweet older couple at the next dinner table over in Merton, or these awesome photographers who were on the cable car and hiking trails with us in Graubünden.
You've heard us say it before. Not buying a Swiss train pass is like throwing your Swiss francs in the garbage. Most likely, the trip itinerary you're planning will be cheaper and more convenient with a pass than if you simply chose to pay full price for tickets along the way. But if you've done even just 1 minute of research, then you know this world of Swiss train passes is way more complicated than you would have thought. And buying the wrong pass, or sometimes buying just one pass instead of multiple passes, could be just as big of a mistake as buying no train pass at all. Case in point, we paid a lot of money for a Swiss travel pass on our 2-week honeymoon to Switzerland. And we would have saved a lot more money with just a half fare card and 2 regional passes. But you live and you learn, and that's why we know what we know now. And why you now know what you're learning. And that's why we created our ultimate guide to Swiss train passes. First, download our free Swiss train pass checklist to match the best passes with your specific itinerary. Then browse that video and blog to learn how to buy, use, and maximize your passes.
Speaking of riding trains on our honeymoon, please enjoy this throwback picture of us carrying suitcases that weighed more than we did. It was an absolute pain to hoist them onto trains and find space on the luggage racks and carry them up and down the stairs in the hotel. I literally had this giant bruise on my hip from lugging that bag around all over Switzerland for 2 weeks straight. And after that experience, we vowed to never again travel with such big suitcases. Obviously, the one thing that all travelers have in common is that they come with some kind of luggage. But this is our encouragement, or our plea, to invite you to travel with less than you think. Stay in an Airbnb with a washing machine, or find a local laundromat, or use these handy laundry detergent sheets to hand wash your clothes in your sink or your shower, which is what we do when we travel.
However,
while you don't need to pack 14 outfits for a 1-week trip, it is really important to have the right layers and enough functional clothing items. You'll definitely want a rain jacket, and you'll also want to bring a lightweight, packable, puffy down jacket, especially if you're going in the mountains and even in the summer. Trust us, I know it sounds crazy to have a jacket like that in the summer, but it can get cold in the mountains and at higher elevation, even in August. Bring a variety of layers that you can mix and match instead of just 1 or 2 bulky layers. And as for shoes, try to pack no more than 2 pairs. Aim for 1 comfortable pair of tennis shoes for like walking in cities, and then another athletic pair for trails. You don't necessarily need like a high top hiking boot, but maybe like a light trail running shoe or a lightweight hiking shoe.
Here's some good news. You don't need to buy tickets in advance for all of your transportation routes. In fact, in the case of standard point-to-point tickets, you won't even save any money by doing so. And you don't actually need seat reservations for most of your train rides.
however,
That doesn't mean you can just show up and buy everything in the moment. In general, you will really want to book your lodging in advance. There have been times where we've done like a last-minute trip when the weather is nice to do some filming or research, and when we do, we're often stuck with very limited options, and many of them are super expensive. But here are 3 other activities you'll want to book in advance. For the Swiss scenic trains, you'll need to make your seat reservations in advance. And popular outdoor experiences like paragliding and via ferratas do sell out quickly, so you probably want to book those ahead of time as well. Last, don't overlook dinner reservations. Sometimes you can just show up and get a table, but for the genuinely good restaurants, like the ones that we recommend in our guides, you'll want to make dinner reservations at least the day before or the morning of.
There's not an objectively right or wrong time to visit Switzerland, but there are better and worse times based on what you want to do. For example, in May 2021, we booked a month-long Airbnb in Interlaken, and we were so excited to spend weeks hiking in the Alps, only to show up to lots of lingering snow, even below 2,000 meters, so most of the trails were technically closed. And not everything in Switzerland is open year-round. Like I just said, some of the trails can be closed due to snow, but cable cars also close for annual maintenance, and even a lot of the hotel and restaurant owners can close during certain times of the year for holiday. The nerve of them, right?
but let's be real.
There are amazing activities to be had all over Switzerland all year long, so simply pair your activities with the season. As we discovered, springtime is not the best for hiking in the mountains. Instead, we hung out on the lakes, enjoyed waterfalls, walked through meadows exploding with wildflowers, and explored more lesser-known parts of Switzerland. Essentially, you don't have to visit in peak summer season to enjoy your time in Switzerland, but you also shouldn't force those same summer activities into other seasons of the year.
We had friends who took a whirlwind European vacation to 10 countries in 14 days. And we met up with them when they were on their last stop in Rome, Italy. Man, oh man, were they pooped. And visiting 7 different Swiss destinations in 7 days would be just as crazy. When you move around too frequently, you end up spending most of your trip checking in and out of lodging, traveling between destinations, and then trying to get acquainted with a new place. And all of that time ends up taking away from the incredible experiences you could be enjoying in each spot. So we think that most of you will have a better experience if you just slow down and stay longer in each destination.
However,
Switzerland is surprisingly multifaceted, and it's far more than just the land of Heidi and yodeling farmers. So try to visit more than just one language region. Maybe your itinerary includes Interlaken in the German-speaking region, Montreux in the French-speaking region, and Ticino in the Italian-speaking region. And hit some of the hotspots for sure. We're looking at you, Jungfraujoch and Matterhorn Glacier Paradise, but why not try out a less touristy region too? We've had a great time exploring the Emmental, Graubünden, and Neuchâtel. The good news is that you can have a variety of experiences no matter where you stay, by seeking out adventures such as lakes, mountains, and countryside, as well as cities, towns, and villages.
Sometimes it makes a lot of sense to book your lodging right in the middle of the tourist hotspot or close to a main transportation hub. But often, you can save more money and have a more authentic experience by booking your lodging just a little bit out from there. For example, stay in Villeneuve or Vevey instead of Montreux, which are just 5 minutes away by train, or choose a local neighborhood in Zurich instead of staying in the center of Old Town. We use this strategy all the time and our wallets are much better off because of it. And usually we're just a 5 or 10 minute train, bus, or tram ride right from the middle of the action.
but
While sometimes the minimal inconvenience is worth it for the big money savings, sometimes that inconvenience can really grow, like wasted time or more frequent transportation connections or even just less frequent options for transportation. So don't rule out those local villages and neighborhoods near the tourist hotspots, but make sure you do your homework to ensure they're not too inconvenient.
This one isn't so much about cities versus mountains, but just knowing what you actually want. We've seen way more tourists than we care to count who book a hotel in Zurich just to end up taking day trips to Interlaken and Grindelwald every day. Or tourists who are staying in Geneva and taking an extremely long day trip to Zermatt. Why not just stay in the actual place you want to visit?
however,
From Lucerne, it's actually pretty convenient to visit Mount Pilatus, Mount Rigi, Mount Titlis, the Stanzerhorn, and do the Stoss Ridge Hike, all of which you can do using our Lucerne Day Trips Guide. But if you were to stay somewhere up in the mountains, you'd invariably rule out a few of these because they would just be much too far for a reasonable day trip in our opinion. So we're not saying to avoid staying in the mountains or to avoid staying in cities for that matter. Just know what makes a good hub for the places you want to explore.
There are so many places I could not imagine going without a car. For example, Tuscany in Italy or southern Provence in France. Having a car in those spots makes it so efficient to get to places that you really couldn't otherwise. But having a car in Switzerland may not be as convenient as you think. First, public transportation in Switzerland is so efficient and it gets you pretty much everywhere you'd want to go, even the most remote villages. Second, most of the mountains that you're wanting to visit or stay in probably can't even be reached by car. Like literally there are no legal roads that you can take to drive up there. So you're gonna have to take a cable car or a train or something to get there anyway. This applies to places like Zermatt, Wengen, and Mürren. And third, parking is expensive and you're gonna have to pay for it pretty much everywhere you go in Switzerland, even the grocery store sometimes.
but
Although we think public transportation is a great way for people to explore Switzerland, we understand that it's not right for everyone. Maybe you want to explore off the beaten path destinations, or maybe you want to drive those famous mountain roads like the Clausen Pass. Or maybe your trip to Switzerland is sandwiched between France and Italy in your big European road trip and you don't want to have to rent 2 separate rental cars. Although if that's the case, I would probably just encourage you to rearrange your itinerary. But basically, think very carefully before you book a car for your trip to Switzerland. But if that's the experience you want to have, don't let us talk you out of it either.
We've received way too many emails like this to count. Hi, Jana and Brett. We're so happy we found your channel. In fact, we wish we'd found it earlier. We hired a travel agent, but now it's clear that you have far more experience than they do. We've scrapped their plans and are following your info instead. Lesson learned. I'm sure there are plenty of travel agents with genuine expertise. But the reality is that most, especially those with the larger tour companies, don't really have a specialized knowledge of Switzerland. They're more going off of a basic understanding of how European travel works, which you could honestly get for yourself by just reading a few blog posts or watching a handful of our videos. And while we're on this topic, you cannot trust AI to be your travel agent either. We're seeing more and more videos on YouTube that were obviously created by bots with random footage, wrong info, and published by a creator who's never stepped foot in Switzerland. And we even asked a few AI generators to create a Swiss trip itinerary for us, and boy oh boy, it wasn't great. But that's a topic for another video.
However,
we have literally spent years living in and traveling Switzerland, and our business is singularly focused on helping you travel Switzerland with confidence. And we're still learning new stuff every day. So don't try to plan your trip all by yourself. Take advantage of resources made by real people who know this country inside and out. We have done-for-you itineraries that take all the guesswork out of planning your Swiss vacation, and even if you'd rather not fork over any cash, you have our full permission to binge watch our entire video library and snag every free download on our website. So happy planning, and we'll see you in Switzerland.